whenever initially was talking to my wife about doing a coding boot camp, we joked around. We made like crack jokes of like, what does anybody do with $100,000 a year? Like, it would be crazy, like that. We were speaking about it.
Hey, my name is Felix. I'm the host of the Culture of Code. We invite experienced and successful tech industry leaders like software engineers, engineering managers, and product managers to reveal exactly what they've learned about growing and succeeding in the tech industry. In today's episode, I am joined by Christian, who is a software engineer at Spectrio and an alumni of App Academy, which is a software engineering bootcamp. Welcome, Christian.
Hi, I'm good to be here.
Yeah, glad for you to be here. So you mentioned to us that you actually had not coded a single line of code before joining the bootcamp. Can you share more about your experience and the learning curve when you've come in with such a kind of a blank canvas before going into a bootcamp?
Yeah, so in terms of like actual technical code, yeah, never written a single line. I, watched some of the preliminary YouTube videos that I think everybody looking to come into this career or looking to, start investing time into coding kind of watch. Whenever it comes to like the actual learning curve of things, speaking more on behalf of App Academy, they were really good with whenever I decided, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. They send you coursework to help you start getting started with kind of the preliminary learning, a lot of just very basic knowledge that you would need going into it. You learn a bit of HTML, CSS, kind of Boolean logic, that kind of thing. And so the learning curve going into it wasn't too bad. I think that they did a really good job with making sure that you were well tested and that you were actually feeling comfortable going in with what knowledge you did have. I did have a lot of knowledge about computers in general, just not necessarily on the coding aspect of things. So I had a little bit of comfort in that knowledge as well.
Yeah, looking back, was there a specific topic or something that you wish you had spent more time on preparing before jumping in?
Honestly, not really. I would like to say that there is, but between the pre-course work and just the fact that App Academy does a really good job with ramping up quickly, but ramping up in a way that you can actually start from ground zero pretty comfortably. I think that there's nothing that I would really change too awful much about my preparations before the course. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I could have done, Udemy courses or watching some more, in-depth YouTube videos before going in, but I would definitely say that that's not necessary.
Makes sense. So prior to deciding on joining the Coding Bootcamp App Academy, you were actually considering a completely different field. You were thinking about a career in nursing. What was the deciding factor? I guess maybe first of all, why were you deciding between the two of them? And what was the deciding factor that led you towards the coding route?
Yeah, so initially the nursing came from just a passion with that kind of stemmed away from family things. My mother's a nurse, has been in the medical field for as long as I can remember. And so that's kind of what sprouted that seed. And the kind of fork that happened was right at the beginning of COVID. And so I was not a fan of the way that the medical industry was going at the time and the way that specifically nurses were being treated throughout that process, specifically at the beginning. And so not only that, but just I had a lot of interest and passion in the tech industry and just the value that comes with it, the amount of gratification that comes with it, self gratification that comes along with the tech industry. So that's kind of what veered me left towards the software engineering path.
Yeah, and you also said to us that a big part of your decision too was that you wanted to work somewhere where you genuinely enjoyed, and if you went down that path about what you saw with how nurses are treated, I'm sure that would not be a great environment to work in when like with again how nurses were being treated, and but you also wanted a career where you could provide for your family. After going through this boot camp, how has your life changed? How has your career changed? How has the trajectory of your career changed where you can say that these two things are now true, where you are genuinely enjoying and you're able to provide for your family? How much of that is true today?
Oh man, I can speak for days on this topic on just the general quality of life that's changed. And not I'll start off by talking not financially. I have a family, I have a wife, and I have a 18-month-old. And my goal was I need to prepare myself and my family to be able to provide a life that I would like to provide. And so Part of that was having a wife that was, if she felt comfortable being a stay-at-home mom, which is what her dream was. And not only that, but the possibility of being working remotely, being able to stay at home. I haven't had to miss a single thing from my daughter in terms of doctor visits. We take her to gymnastics. We have so many different like activities that we do with her, and I haven't had to miss a single thing. So that obviously the quality of life has changed in that sense of just being able to be present and being able to just be with the people that I love at all times, not having to be forced to go into an office that I might not enjoy. And then the bigger part, financially side of things, before this, I was working in retail management. And so at the highest point of my position in retail, I was making like $16 an hour ish. And so I think that that correlates roughly to roughly maybe less than 30K a year around here. So, and then after completing App Academy, I worked as an instructor. I worked at App Academy for right at 8, 9 months ish. Immediately left App Academy because a position opened up and a door opened up for me to work at a company called Branding Brand as an engineering manager. Worked there for right at 2 years, and then just recently moved over to the company I'm at now. Every single step of the process was a pay change, a pay increase, where now I'm currently sitting at right at 118,000 a year. And obviously there's a lot of benefits that come with that, financial freedom. I'm able to, like I said, provide the life that my wife and I imagined as we were dating and starting to paint the picture of our future. So there comes a lot of financial freedom and quality of life and upgrades that come with that as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's an important aspect. The first part about which is that the flexibility I think that comes with being a software engineer, which is kind of unmatched in compared to other industries. And I have the same situation where I have young kids, I have a family as well, and just being having the flexibility to change your schedule around. If you want to work remotely, those options are there, and be able to be present, like you're saying, for doctor visits or taking them to midday activities and just having that balance in your life, especially when you have a young family, is like super important. And I think it's, maybe equal to the actual financial compensation that you get from it as well. So yeah, $16 an hour, which is about like 30K. You mentioned to 118K, which is what, like a four x increase in your salary is crazy. Do you remember what that moment was like getting that first kind of paycheck? That was multiple step change from what you're getting before.
So yeah, it's funny. Whenever I initially was talking to my wife about doing a coding boot camp, we joked around. We made like crack jokes of like, what does anybody do with $100,000 a year? Like it would be crazy, like that. We were speaking about it as an unobtainable goal. And whenever I first started with App Academy as an instructor, the pay wasn't super great. I think that my starting pay as an instructor was $22 an hour. Nothing too crazy. It climbed up before I left. I was in the position of mod lead. My compensation at that point was, to be honest, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was right about the 70 K a year, if I remember correctly. And we were super happy about that. The door opened up at Branding Brand, and I came in on Branding Brand making $110,000 a year. And that first paycheck that my wife and I received from Branding Brand was, we immediately were just floored with not only the possibilities of what we could do. We had just recently bought a house. And so there was a lot of, plans that we had with that, a lot of renovations and whatnot. So we had immediately started planning all of these big things with the house. And like I said, at that point, we were, just recently figured out we were pregnant. And so there was a lot of planning that happened with that. And so the thing that I kind of missed talking about the last question was the fact that the main thing, and I completely believe that this is equal to compensation. Going from retail to the tech industry, there is a huge shift in self-worth and how much you are valued within your company. And obviously, this is going to change from company to company that you work for. If you have an awful manager, then then that's going to be different. But you work at a retail where you really tend to just feel like another number and another person, and then you go into the tech industry, and at least all the experiences that I have, where the team that I'm within, either managing or as a developer, you feel like you're doing something important. You feel like you're actually making an impact. You feel like you're building something or managing or maintaining something that matters. And so Throughout this entire process where I'm getting the compensation changes and the happiness that comes along with that, the entire time I feel like I'm doing something that is worth doing, which is very different than what I was feeling whenever I was living in the retail world.
Yeah, that's amazing. And when you were going through this entire experience where you graduated basically from a boot camp and changed jobs multiple times during some of the biggest shifts in the tech industry, where we went from lots of hiring to very drastically lots of hiring freezes and layoffs, it can be pretty scary, especially when you are maybe newer in your career. For other people that are out there that are also new in their career or just about to, let's say, think about going to boot camp, or maybe they're just about to leave college and enter the industry for the first time. Tell us about what your experience was like going through such kind of major changes in the tech industry.
Yeah, so I've actually been impacted by the layoffs as well. I was laid off from Branding Brand, and it was a very, very sudden thing. I was invited to a meeting an hour into my shift that was just like a one-on-one meeting, and it turned out to be a layoff meeting. And so it took me just over a month to find another job. And obviously, whenever you have a kid and whenever you have a wife that's a stay-at-home mom and whatnot, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear that comes along with that. The main thing that I would say whenever it comes to the industry as a whole right now is that we need to realize the fact that there are senior engineers that are just as scared as junior and mid-level engineers, and that they're having to be a lot more flexible. They're not able to just reach for those senior level positions because, they have families that they're providing for as well. On the flip side of that as well, there are plenty of companies who are looking for fresh new talent, and they're actually actively looking for junior developers that are ready to make an impact and ready to learn their stack and learn their product. I would say that the main thing that I looked out for and that I was looking towards whenever I was looking is the fact that I have specialized skills. I'm not just another engineer. I do not just have a portfolio. I have these skills that I'm able to tailor to this company that I'm applying for. So the main thing is just to not sell yourself short. In this industry, it's really easy to get discouraged right now whenever you're getting these rejection letters or you're getting ghosted by a bunch of companies. Tailor your resume, tailor your cover letters to the company that you're applying for. Reach out to people. Networking is what got me my job. 100%. Networking is massive. I spent more time, if not equal, if not more time networking as I did applying for jobs and developing because it is crucial right now with the market being the way it is. Very much so. It's who you know more than what you know.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense that because some people are applying for these jobs, oftentimes it's, again, who you know that gets you kind of on the top of the stack of resumes and cover letters that helps the most. What was your experience then like between getting your very first software engineering job versus getting sounds like you're on your third job maybe now? What was different between the first and the most recent one? What was that experience like?
So, my first one being the whole instructional staff, that one's a little bit different. They tested you on your knowledge of coding. They gave you a technical interview, and then after that, it was more just a interview revolving around speaking to students and being able to mentor them and being able to guide them to answers and just how you interact with students as a whole. So that one is definitely different than what you're going to see out on the field for most engineering roles. The main difference that I saw was between my second and third position, and that was the engineering manager job and the current job that I'm in now as a software engineer. The engineering management job, I was not only managing, but I was also doing some developmental work at a stack that I was not originally familiar with. I was knowledgeable in React and JavaScript and Python and those languages where this company relied on React Native to do mobile applications. And so there was still a coding portion of that interview, but they were looking more towards how you speak rather than what you know. And I can speak to that as not only someone who has interviewed, but has been the interviewer as well in these technical interviews. At Branding Brand, I shadowed and ran some interviews as well. And the main thing that I looked for was not necessarily your knowledge, because as engineers, it's our job to be able to find answers, not necessarily know all the answers. But I was looking at how well are you at turning your thoughts into words and conveying them to me? How well can we turn this problem into a conversation? Talk about how you're thinking and how your solution is looking. I think that that's a skill that is worked on and that is learned and not necessarily something that you get inherently. So that's the main thing on the first one. Now, the second interview at Spectrio, that one definitely was a lot more of a behavioral interview than a technical interview. They asked more technical questions. There was not actually a coding portion to this interview. I had to, answer a lot of technical questions and, give like, kind of like system design kind of answers and whatnot. But a lot of that was just behavioral, which from what I understand and from what I've seen from the industry at the time, we're starting to move more into the behavioral side of things over the technical side of things, which I'm excited for. I think that's a huge leap.
Yeah, I agree. I think while, the kind of leak code, technical interview style questions have its place where you're trying to interview, thousands of people at once, I think the downside of that approach is that it doesn't really test like what you're actually like working with and what your skills are actually on the job. And your earlier point about how you as an interviewer, you're looking more at how they about their thought process, how they think through problems, how they are making forward progress towards a solution is more important than actually getting the answers is really important because getting the answer sometimes is a lot about is just like in some cases rote memorization, but that is not applicable outside of that particular problem, that particular question. And I think yeah, it's important for us to try to balance the broad technical versus like the actual behavioral and learning more about the actual person and their problem solving skills. So, the one special thing I think about the App Academy program that they have today, and then also that they had when I went through App Academy previously, was that they have a tuition deferment plan. Tell us more about what is the tuition deferment plan? How did it help your situation?
Yeah, so I can honestly say the tuition deferment plan is 100% the entire reason why now I'm in this industry and why going to a boot camp was feasible for me. Like I said, I was living off of a retail salary, so definitely not anything too crazy to talk about. But tuition deferment at its roots is basically App Academy says we are so confident in our program and our ability to find you a job that you do not have to pay us a dime until you find a job making at least this much money. I don't remember exactly what the numbers are off the top of my head. I'm wanting to say that the minimum was like 45K or something like that. But basically, yeah, the entire idea is if our program works and if we are confident in saying we can turn you into a great engineer, then we're going to make it to where you don't have to pay us a dime until you find that job. So the way that that worked is I'm going to speak into it as if you didn't go the instructional path with App Academy. Because whenever you become an instructor with App Academy, they technically you wait to start paying until you get a job outside of App Academy. But as a normal student that doesn't pursue a career within App Academy, you graduate, you start to go into the career quests and the job hunt, and you get connected with a job coach, a career coach, and they start working on getting you up to par with other people that are interviewing and teaching you how to interview and that kind of stuff. And then once you find the job, based on what your yearly income is, there's a prorated amount that you start paying back monthly. This is interest free. You don't pay interest on it or anything like that. But it makes it to where over 3 years you have pay off your tuition.
I went through the similar thought process where it's like when the boot camp has the same interests, their interests are aligned with yours. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because they are incentivized to get you a job and like, to get for them to get paid the tuition, and obviously you're incentivized to get a job as well. I think that's important to have the interests aligned. I would love to see that more actually for more traditional universities for us to be able to defer payment on tuitions if unless you can get a job or not. So yeah, I really like that aspect of it as well. And because their interests are aligned, I think App Academy really puts a lot of effort into getting their students ready for the workforce. And the program can actually be pretty intense. I remember when I went through it, I probably spent, I don't know, almost like every waking hour other than, eating dinner and breakfast and lunch, just focusing on the coursework and even on the weekends. And this was maybe about like 2 months or maybe 2 to 3 months straight I'd be curious about what your experience was like, what strategies you might have been helpful for you to be able to keep up with this kind of pace, especially when you come into a curriculum that is just not something that you've done in the past. Like you didn't write too much code before, and you kind of just dump right into it. And the coursework is a lot, and it's intense, and it's supposed to be intense, as you're cramming in a lot at once. How did you make sure that you were staying sane throughout the entire thing?
Yeah, so that's something that not only as a student, seeing it within myself and my cohort mates, but also as an instructor and kind of coaching students away from this. Burnout is real. You're expected to learn a lot of information in a short amount of time. So, for me personally, the main thing that I focused on whenever it came to fighting burnout was asking a lot of questions and reminding myself that I have this knowledge and I'm capable of doing this. And so, and that seems very like, just kind of surface level. But one thing that I found whenever it came to students is the imposter syndrome and the doubt is what really starts the fire of burnout. The second that you're going into your Monday assessment, or the second that you're doing your practice assessment on Friday and you realize, oh wait, I don't know this answer. I should know this answer. Why don't I know this answer? That's what starts the wildfires of burnout, where the main thing that you need to realize is exactly what I said earlier. I'm not expected to know all the answers. I'm expected to be able to find the answers efficiently as I would being out on the field. So the main things that that I personally focused on whenever I was going through App Academy was self reassurance in a matter of I am here for a reason and I am capable 100% of doing this. Also, the fact that, I had that motivation of my family. I had the motivation of the goals that I had. And it wasn't just financial goals. It was the goals of, providing myself with the lifestyle mentally that I wanted. So um, asking a lot of questions was another thing. I think that if you plan on going through App Academy or really through anything where it's a fast paced environment and you don't have the mentality of, I'm going to ask questions if I don't know something, I think that you're somewhat setting yourself up for failure. There are so many people that I went through App Academy with and taught that just kind of had the mentality that they were going to coast through this. They didn't ask questions. They just tried to figure out every answer for themselves. And it really caused them to become overstressed. It caused them to have to spend a lot more hours into studying than they really should have because of the fact that there's plenty of topics that I had figured out for myself in a way that maybe could help you with learning these things as well. So, for example, whenever I was an instructor, I was in charge of teaching three things specifically: HTML, CSS, data structures and algorithms, and promises, I think, was the other one. And I had found ways of teaching and learning and reviewing all three of those topics that really made it easy for me to understand. And if you didn't ask questions of me and if you didn't inquire my thought process, there's a good chance that you wouldn't have known how I figured that out and wouldn't have, found those tips and tricks that I had. So I think asking questions is huge. Being silent and going through it by yourself, I don't think is a good idea.
Yeah, I think in general, even once you are working as a software engineer, the more you have this story in your head about I should know, I should be. And once you start saying that, that's when you kind of start trapping yourself in these expectations. Then you start becoming fearful about asking questions and exposing yourself as someone that doesn't know everything, which is crazy because no one knows everything.
Mhm.
Even the staff engineers that I work with, the smartest people in the room, they are usually the ones that are going to be the first to admit that they don't know something. And that's the reason why they're at their stage, because they have taken the steps to kind of not let their ego get in the way and not let this fear, this imposter syndrome, which everyone has, not let it get in the way of them learning and growing. So yeah, I think that's really important to kind of put that aside. I think going through the program too, I think a lot of students are treating it as like, let me prove to myself that I can be a software engineer. And I think a part of the methodology of them trying to prove it to themselves is trying to figure everything out themselves. And if they can't figure it out themselves, and they believe that they're not a software engineer, they're not capable of being one because they couldn't figure it all out by themselves. So I think, yeah, it's definitely a trap that you can get in, and it's really hard to get out once you're in it. But yeah, I think if you just lean on asking questions and being eager to just ask the questions right off the bat and not let these kind of thoughts about how you should know something or you should be at a certain point get in the way, I think is very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, every company professionally that I've been within in the software engineering space has had I've used two different platforms, both Slack and Ring Central. They're both kind of like just chat based programs. Anyways, they both have an engineering questions channel. And that is for engineers that are just, they're working on their tickets, they're working on their problems. They don't know what a console log does, whatever. And so they ask in this channel, hey, I'm trying to do this thing and I have no idea how to do that. Anybody have any ideas? I can honestly say never once have I seen anybody get criticized, get put down, get made fun of for asking a what some might think to be a dumb question. Never once. You're not going to see it. If you see that, then you're at a bad, you have a bad employee. So asking questions is never a bad thing. Asking questions, I would say, is 100% part of our job as engineers. Asking good questions is something that we need to learn and we need to cultivate that skill.
Yeah, I was actually speaking to, I think, a solution architect that works at Salesforce, and he had mentioned that one of the most important soft skills he learned was being the one that's willing to kind of show that they don't know. And because the reason why it's so valuable is that a lot of people will enjoy being in the room with them because they're going to be asking the questions that everyone else is kind of thinking about, but is afraid to look, quote unquote, dumb by asking it. So I think there's a lot of value organizationally as someone that is willing to ask the questions as well, because a lot of people are probably having the same questions as you, because you are the one that asked the questions. Now there's opportunity for everyone to learn. So I want to move on real quick because you mentioned that you actually work a remote job, and I think a lot of people out there, aspire to have a remote job too for all of the benefits that we spoke about earlier. But their concern is that, oh, no one's going to hire a junior engineer as a remote engineer, and they typically want someone sitting next to them, or rather they want someone to be in the office to learn that way and not be brand new as a remote software engineer. What are your thoughts on that? I guess that fear, that thought about trying to get a remote job as a more junior software engineer.
I think that the industry as a whole is moving towards the remote path. I think that companies are realizing that we don't need to spend a lot of money on these lavish buildings with all these amenities that tech industry is known to have and allow our developers and our employees to stay in the comforts of their home. I don't think that any junior developer needs to fear the possibility of not being able to work remote. There's plenty of opportunities out there for remote work. Now, what is important whenever it comes to remote work is that you need to figure out how to properly communicate, and you need to make sure that you're in a company that also cultivates the idea of proper communication because of the fact that as a junior developer, we're still learning. There's a lot that we need to learn, and you need to be able to comfortably reach out to, a senior engineer or your team lead or just a regular coworker that's also a junior that might have a little more experience as you and expect to have a good answer or, a good conversation with them. So I think that what a junior developer needs to start working on is how to properly communicate, because it is harder to communicate remotely over being able to talk face to face. So that kind of leans itself back over to learning also how to ask good questions as well. So I don't think that there needs to be a fear of being able to work remote. Most jobs, if you look on LinkedIn or OTA or these other job board posting boards, a lot of them are remote. But you also need to realize that a lot of people are going after these remote jobs. So there's that as well.
Awesome. And maybe one final question is that what advice would you give to someone that is considering joining a coding boot camp but is unsure about the financial commitment or the job prospects after graduating?
Yeah, so I would definitely say look at your options. Coding boot camps are not for everyone. Some people would rather have that long-term formal college education, that, 4-year, 2-year degree. And there's definitely we have put ourselves into a point in the tech industry where there are two paths to get here, and that is a college education or a boot camp. There is no longer that separation. I have yet to see a company who specifically says you can only work here if you have a college degree. So I would say that, look at your options, look at everything out there. I looked at probably 5 or 10 different boot camps before I chose App Academy, and I figured out that App Academy was the one that financially made sense for me. In terms of the industry as a whole, do not let the industry scare you. It is the tech industry. We're going to do nothing but grow. Right now, yes, we are at a slump in the road, but that was very much because of decisions that these, companies made in the past that have, led to this problem. All these companies grew massively at the beginning of COVID, and now they're, having to learn how to bottom back out. But regardless, don't be scared. It's a wonderful industry to get yourself into. It's constantly challenging. There's so many facets of this industry that you can get into, whether you want to go into AI or security or whatever, mobile development. Find your passion. Find something that you really are passionate about. I would discourage someone who's going purely into this industry because of money. It's a hard industry. It's hard to learn and it's hard to get into currently. And so if you don't have the passion for the industry itself, you're going to become a lot more mentally burnout a lot quicker.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about how you shouldn't go into for the money because the thing is that even though the coding boot camp is intense for those 2, 3 months that you're in it, the learning doesn't stop after that. So if you're not into learning and not into continually learning new technologies, learning becoming a beginner often over and over again, then yeah, it won't be a right fit for you because again, it's not just a one time go to this camp, this school once, and then be set for life. It's really just the beginning of the path. So I think yeah, it's important. I think it's good to be able to get a taste for what that's going to be like. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. But if it is, I think yeah, there's a lot of great opportunities that lay ahead. And your comment too about how don't be worried about what you see kind of in the news and layoffs and hiring freezes and whatnot. I think if you look at the numbers, compared to pre-COVID and pre-explosive growth in the industry, hiring is still up overall. A lot of companies hired a bunch and there were layoffs, but overall they're still up compared to prior to the big hiring boom. So I think yeah, all in all, I think it's continuing to grow and will continue to grow. So thank you so much for your time, Christian. Again, software engineer at Spectrio and alumni from App Academy Coding Bootcamp. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience and your journey with us.
Awesome. Thank you.